Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you here. Today we are going over all the books that I read in July, a little July recap for you guys. So I'm not going to talk, surprisingly, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So the first book that I read in July was Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Sanders, and I read this one in a video. So if you saw that video previously, then you kind of saw my reactions and you kind of know that I really enjoyed the book. It was so good. That's probably the best thriller book I've ever read. Just hands down. It was so good. I loved the main characters. I loved just the feeling that I was getting the whole time. I literally practically read it with my jaw on the floor. Like, the whole time. And I'm not even joking. So this one was about a couple, Joanne and Richard, and they just had a daughter. Richard was previously married to another woman, and she ended up dying, and he had a daughter with this other woman. So the daughter, her name was Chloe, she ends up coming over to stay with Richard and Joanne immediately is like, oh, Chloe doesn't like me. Chloe's saying all these things to Joanne, not doing what she's supposed to be doing. Joanne will tell her to do something and she doesn't do it, and then she'll turn around and tell Richard that, Joanne didn't tell her, and just kind of making Joanne seem like she's crazy and she's losing her mind and stuff like that. So Joanne's mom does have a history with a mental illness, so it almost seems like Chloe's trying to convince Richard that Joanne has kind of the same thing that her mom does. And Joanne's telling Richard, hey, this is not true. I'm telling her these things and she's just not listening. She's going off and doing whatever she wants to do. And Richard's like, oh, no, Chloe wouldn't do that. So they're all just gaslighting Joanne. And it was kind of funny. So, but I would feel really bad if I was her. But other than that, it was so good. So good. There was plot twists, but they were really minuscule plot twists, which I thought was kind of nice. It wasn't anything super crazy, just kind of out of left field. Because to me, I feel like a lot of times I'll see the plot twist and I'll be like, that almost doesn't make sense. I almost don't understand where that came from, But this was not that. It was very much stuff that I already thought about, but I wasn't mad that what I'd guessed happened because I was just enjoying the story so much. Fantastic. So I ended up giving that one a 5. So I ended up giving that one a 5 out of 5 stars. First book I read this month, and it's 5-star. Good for me. The next book that I read is Cant Hurt Me by David Goggins, and I read this one and the next 2 books for the video of where Nick picks my books. Really, I was reading everything that was on his Kindle pretty much, and this is one of the books that he really wanted me to read. It's the first book in a series. It's not really, it's nonfiction, so I wouldn't call it a series necessarily, but that's kind of essentially the vibe. But this one is all about David Goggins, obviously. It's a nonfiction about his life. And this one kind of goes into his past life, his life before he kind of created this mindset for himself and became who he is today. So it goes back to his family and how his dad was, how his mom was, how they were as a family, those family dynamics, and then him moving, him going to school, him getting into the military, then getting out and finding some stuff to do out of the military, then getting back into the military, joining the Navy SEALs, all of his working towards that, and just kind of all the challenges that he had to go through. It was pretty good. It was really interesting. It was definitely not a self-help book, but it kind of followed along that same vibe-ish. It could be for some people, but for the majority of people, it's just a story of him and his build up to his mindset. Because if you know anything about David Goggins, or if you see him online or anything like that, he's the guy that's running hundreds of miles every day, that's jumping into freezing lakes and swimming because nobody else is doing it, and he wants to endure the pain so that he knows that he can push forward through it. So it's kind of just him and his backstory into how he kind of created that mindset. So it was really good. It was very interesting. It was fascinating to kind of dive into his mind and see kind of what he was thinking and just the obstacles that he had overcome whenever he was younger and just growing up, and just all the stuff that played a part into how he is now. And I think a lot of people would definitely turn that into a negative mindset and, go down the other way, but he brought himself up from it, which is really interesting to see. So I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. For nonfiction, I didn't think I was going to like it that much, to be honest, but it was really inspirational. I really enjoyed it, and there was a couple things that I ended up taking away from it that'll probably better myself and my mindset as well. The next book on the list is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I'm sure everybody knows what this one is at this point. This one follows the main character. His name is Nick, and he just moved into the house across the street from this lavish party thrower Jay Gatsby. So Nick's cousin, I believe her name is Daisy, they find out that Gatsby is looking for Daisy because they are long lost lovers that nobody really knows about, but they kind of find out. Daisy's already married to Tom, which Tom is cheating on her with this other lady who's also married. It's like just a whole big cheating trope. That's what it is. Cheating trope. So if you're not big into that, I would not read this book. They're wanting to run away together, all that mess. And then Daisy ends up wanting to kind of pursue things with Gatsby. There's a whole bunch of drama in the middle, and then the ending, which I'm not gonna tell you. It wasn't my favorite. It's obviously a classic. It's a lot older of a story if you've never read it. So it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite writing style. It was kind of difficult for me to grasp because it's not like present day as what we know now. But it still wasn't bad. Wasn't my favorite though. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Then we have Never Finished by David Goggins again, and this one followed along in the same footsteps as Cant Hurt Me, but it wasn't quite the same. So I've talked about this again in the other video. You've already seen that one and you're watching this again. I'm sorry, I'm gonna repeat myself, because why would I not say the same thing over and over again? But the Cant Hurt Me followed him from, like, I don't know, about maybe whenever he was like 6 or so, 6 to 8-ish, and all the way to 2018, versus the Never Finished started at 2018 and went to 2022. So the first book covered a whole lot more ground than this book, which is why I didn't like it as much. It was still really good, but it was mainly just following him and his journey through his ultra marathons and then getting injured, thugging it out, keeping on going, and stuff like that. So it was a lot more of the running aspect. I don't necessarily know much about running. Obviously, I know a little bit more now than I did, but it was just kind of repetitive almost, which obviously that's kind of what it is. It's about him and him doing these things. So I don't know. It was okay. It was my favorite. If you like David Goggins, I would say that this is probably a good book for you. If you don't really care about him or know who he is or anything like that, kind of more as I was, you're not going to enjoy it as much, I feel like, just because it's like, I don't know anything about him. You know what I mean? It's like reading a memoir about somebody that you don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, you don't necessarily care about them because you don't know enough about them to care. But I ended up giving that one a 3 out of 5 stars. Not bad. Just not my favorite. Alright, then I read Ward D by Frida McFadden. So this one's about a medical student. Her name is Amy, and she gets assigned to work in the psychiatric ward overnight. And she's in there with her fellow med student friend, and they just so happen to be exes. So she's locked in the psych ward with her ex, and she does not want to be in there at all. She has some kind of past experience with the psych ward, so she's kind of got like a fear of going back. She's scared of being locked in. She's scared of, you know, the whole vibes in the place. They just had a new patient come in, and he is extremely violent. He's kind of locked away in the solitary part of the psychiatric ward. And so they tell her that, you know, don't go over to this room because he's really aggressive. He's really violent. So he'll probably hurt you. So throughout the night, they're supposed to interview other patients and kind of talk to them and get to know them and stuff like that. And through all of their interviews with all of the different patients, they've come to find out that the person, I can't remember his name, but the guy that is in the solitary confinement, he is planning on killing everybody that night. So that's a rumor that's going around. But, you know, they're in a psych ward, so she doesn't know whether she should believe the patients or just kind of keep doing her own thing, not really think too much of it. As the night goes on, she's talking to other people, she's getting some information, she's hearing the same thing, everybody's on edge, they all think they're gonna die because of, you know, the guy in solitary, and she's starting to get more worried, she's freaked out, she hasn't seen her co-worker in a long time, she kind of wants him to protect her, but she can't find him, she has no idea where he is, and she's not really looking for him, but she's kind of like in the back of her head, like, I wonder where he went. So we're just kind of following her the rest of the night and kind of what all goes on, what all happens. It's pretty interesting. I really, really liked it. It was really good. That was probably my favorite Frida McFadden book that I've read so far, even though I think I've only read like 2. So I ended up giving that one a 5 out of 5 stars. Really good. I enjoyed it. I, again, guessed the plot twist to an extent, not fully, but for the most part. It was still good though. It wasn't like one of those where I was mad that I guessed it. Then the next book that I read was Summer of Broken Rules by K.O. Walther. So this one was a cute little summer romance book, and this one is about Meredith, and she just lost her sister recently, within like the past year and a half-ish, and she's going back to, it's like a family retreat spot. So they are going back there for her cousin's wedding, and she's just kind of still feeling the loss of her sister, still upset. She's kind of cut ties with her cousins and stuff like that she was really close with in order to cling on to her boyfriend at the time. And this boyfriend now just broke up with her right before this wedding that he said that he was going to go to. So she's devastated, she's upset about her boyfriend, she's still upset about her sister, just kind of nervous overall to go to this family event. They end up getting there and get strung into this gigantic family game of assassin. So if you don't know what that is, I don't really know what that is either, but essentially what I got was that everybody has a card, and it has a name on it, and whoever's name that you have, kind of like Secret Santa almost, but like not quite, whoever's name that you have to like kill off your target. So you would go assassinate your target, and then the target that you just assassinated would give them their target, and then you go get that person. So it's a battle through the whole family to see who comes out the winner overall. And they did this to honor Meredith's sister, who was like the reigning champion of the game that they used to play whenever they were younger. So I'm not really going to get too much into detail about it other than that, but it was very good. It was a romance book, if you don't know. It's a romance book. And it was so cute. I was reading it the whole time, and I was like giddy. I'm sitting there, my heart's fluttering, I'm smiling like a goon, I'm practically kicking my feet up in the air. Anything that you could be doing that you're like, what in the world is she reading? I was doing that. It was very sweet. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a spicy book, so I liked that. I was very excited to see that there wasn't any spice in it. It was like a closed door romance, I guess. So essentially they were talking about it, and they kind of alluded to the fact that they were being spicy, but they didn't actually show it or have like a scene for it necessarily. It was super sweet. I enjoyed it. I really, really liked it. And it was one of those books where I was contemplating. I was like, I want to get the physical copy because I would want to reread this at some point. And that's how you know a book is good, in my opinion. That's how I know a book is good. So I obviously gave that one 5 stars, and probably will read it again because I liked it that much. And the last book that I read this month, just finished yesterday, is His and Hers by Alice Feeney. Now this is the second Alice Feeney book that I read. The first one was it was good, but this one was totally different. And I don't know why I expected them to be somewhat similar, but I did. I thought they were going to be somewhat of the same, but they weren't, like, at all. Not in the slightest. There's 2 main characters in this one. It was Jack, who's a detective, and Anna, who's a news reporter. Anna had just taken over her coworker Kat's position as like main news anchor or something like that. So when Kat unexpectedly comes back after her maternity leave of a couple years, they end up giving the job back to Kat and send Anna back to where she was working beforehand. So in order to keep herself relevant, she decides that she wants to be one of the travel news people. I don't know what they're called, but the people that go out and report on stuff, like a field reporter. Is that what that is? I don't know, but I'm just gonna say that. Kat ends up telling her about a murder that happened in her hometown and asks her if she wants to go do that job, and Anna reluctantly says yes. So she has a lot of past issues that haven't got resolved where she came from, so she doesn't want to relive those memories and bring them back up. She would rather just keep them suppressed and not talk about it. So she's nervous going back, doesn't really want to. So Jack's the head detective on this case, and the woman that ends up dead is a really, really good old friend of Anna's. So Jack has a lot of relations with the girl that ends up dead, and he's trying to figure out who's the one that's doing this before his coworkers can piece together that he could potentially be involved. He doesn't want to be a suspect, so he's trying to figure out who did it before anybody else can kind of put him in as a suspect. But he keeps finding all of these little things that kind of link him to the murders, and he ends up becoming a suspect in his own investigation when he's also suspicious of Anna and her motives and why she's back. Why am I so bad at explaining things? I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know how to deep dive into this one and how to really explain it well without spoiling anything. There's just so much information and so much going on. It's really intense. I thought it was really intense, but it's also very, very good. Definitely a very thick plot twist that I was not expecting. I saw some of like the mini plot twists coming, but not this. Not the ending. I would say that there were some pretty intense topics in this one. I would definitely check your trigger warnings before reading this one if you're sensitive to anything. But other than that, it was good. I didn't love there were some parts where I was like, that's just crappy. Yep. That. I'm done talking about this. I can't do this. This is hurting me. This is hurting me. Oh my gosh. I don't like myself. Anyways. Yeah, that's that. I gave that one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but for some reason it just didn't feel like a 5 to me. But that's it. That's all I have for you. That's everything that I read in July. Most of these are on Kindle Unlimited, but I will have everything linked below, so if you do want to check them out, you can get them on Unlimited through the link as well. But thank you guys so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. I'm so glad that you were here. And hopefully I will get to see you in the next one. See ya.